very excited for his own health. Sam Crosby has been told to go upstairs, and I appreciate it. This way, nothing catches, but geez, that beard's looking good, mate. That beard's looking fantastic. Matt Canavan, he's got a beard ready for after the election, regardless of what the result is. Lovely to see you both. All right, Sam, I'm going to start with you, and about my take on what we should be paying a little bit more attention to in the polls. Is Labor's vote down? Bloody oath. Way down? Absolutely. Enough for it to get smashed in an election? You betcha. However, Coalition ever so slightly up, not as close to, they're closer to a 40 than not. They're in a better position than they were at the last election, blah, 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 blah. But what about that independent factor? Because I don't know what independent means in Queensland. I know that in certain places it means Teals, in other places it means Daly. Do you see this, and from the Labor perspective, is this the silver lining in the polls, that they haven't fully crossed the road yet?
Oh, look, Paul, I don't know if there's many silver linings in those polls that came out today. Look, you are a big believer in the detail of these polls. I tend to think that they more sort of give you a vibe and a general impression of what people are thinking, and it's not really worth delving 3 or 4 lines deep in the data. And, look, to be fair, I'll get in before Matt can make the point. I think it's telling the government that people are pretty pissed off and they want to see them do more and do better to address the cost of living crisis that I think we all are experiencing. And I think they're sending that message loud and clear. I think they're also saying they're not entirely happy with the opposition. They don't want to reward Peter Dutton with their vote just yet. And they're unsure. So, yeah, that might be one of the reasons that they're pumping up the tyres of the independents and the minor parties. But I think it's a sobering message for the government.
Well said, my friend. I know how hard that is and what you cop for saying it, but I appreciate you saying it and you're calling it straight, and that's why we love you. Matt, again, right, I mean, we've talked before. Is this one of those moments where I'm wobbling around, I've gone into the reeds, I've, gone so far off track that I'm looking into the minutiae when the reality is there is a North Star and all you can do is keep walking towards the North Star?
No, I think you're pretty spot on here, Paul. I think people are up for grabs. They're clearly disappointed with the current government. They're clearly underwhelmed with what they see as an inadequate response, I think, to the very significant challenges. I mean, there's no doubt it's a very hard time for governments to be in charge. Lots of things happening all around the world, the challenging recovery from COVID. But the simple fact is this government hasn't come up to the mark of those challenges. It can whinge and whine all it likes, but that comes with a pay grade. It comes with being in government. You are tested on whether you can respond to such challenges, and clearly this government has been found wanting many times on that. So people are up for grabs, and I keep saying, I've said this in this program before, we've got to be up to the test then of showing people that we've got an alternative. My view is to knock off a first-term government. You have to have a very clear set of differences from the current government, because if you're just a small target, if you're too much of the same, people are probably going to default back to thinking, well, maybe the better the devil I know. So look, that's a challenge for us. I've got lots of ideas how we could make those differences. I'm just a mere backbencher though, Paul. And, there's smarter people than me around, but that's a challenge for us. It's up for grabs. People are up for grabs. We can definitely win this thing, and I don't think we should die wanting.
Well, also, again, one without notice here though, Matt, which is that when I tell you the reporting of the Australian newspaper that after the firebombing of the synagogue, rather than the Prime Minister getting on his personal plane, didn't have to wait for one that was coming out of the airport at, in 2 hours, could get on his personal plane, flown straight to Melbourne, but of course didn't. Instead, the next day, after going to the fundraiser, that's when he calls the tennis club, that's when he, having a jolly old time, he'll get round to the national security of everything. This on top of a whole collection of everything from Upgrade Albo to the house to the cost of living stuff, the voice. The bloke is absolutely at the other end of where people are. It's pretty simple. Regardless of whether it was any sort of place of worship, when it's been set on fire, if you've got the chance to be there, get off your ass and go there as soon as possible.
Look, it's a pretty simple one, isn't it, Paul? You've outlined it well. And I think the most important thing you've said there is it's not the first rodeo for the Prime Minister. We saw the same situation with Alice Springs, law and order crisis, where he decided to have, I think, 3 nights at the tennis, still lots of nights at the tennis, not spend the night in Alice Springs. Now he's playing tennis instead of showing leadership on a shocking event that's rocked our nation. Look, this event alone is unlikely to win or lose the election, but as I say, you just seem to have a Prime Minister that misses so many opportunities to show leadership for the country to build unity among us all at times of this. So, look, I think a lot of Labor people are scratching their heads about that, wondering whether the Prime Minister is a bit absent-minded at the moment. As it comes back to me, though, to say, look, I could whinge all night about Anthony Albanese, but we've just got to make sure we get ourselves in order, because I think the Australian people deserve a proper choice. I do think we need a change of government, and I want to not leave anything out in the field in the pursuit of delivering that change.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, I'm going to, again, and maybe it's just whatever the heck is going on inside me right now, but there is just again a little moment of caution here, right? That I remember how hardcore, myself included, he doesn't remember what the unemployment rate is, all of this, and then ultimately, of course, irrelevant to the final outcome. The belief was that those who talk about news all day, every day, were completely somewhere else than where the people were, which was they'd already made their decision and it didn't matter what happened. And again, there is no verbal trap at the end of this question, which results in me pointing and using terms. But what do you think about the series of choices? I mean, is the Prime Minister right to say, look, I've dealt with this, the AFP are up and running, I have done everything that's been asked of me, perhaps not the exact words at the exact time, but I've got there? Or is there just the inevitable bad look of things that's really hard to deal with?
Oh, look, I think you can analyse these things, till the cows come home. It generally all conflates and contributes to a general feeling. But I think over the next couple of months, you're going to see the contrast between the two leaders be brought into stark relief. Both parties are going to be saying, on the one hand, this is either a choice between, from the Conservative side, has the government done a good job and deserve to be re-elected, or from the government side, who do you want, Peter Dutton or Anthony Albanese? I also have to say, Matt just made me think then in one of his earlier answers, I think this is also a team question. I think this is a question about who's on the front bench and measure them up, go down the list. And I have to say, I mean, who am I to give the opposition any advice? But why isn't Matt on the front bench?
Yes.
I think,
By
and
choice.
Matt, feel free not to respond to this.
By choice, he said.
You possibly don't want me saying this, but Matt is one of the more effective commentators, more effective communicators, rather, in the government. And I look down the list of people on the shadow benches, and frankly, with the exception of a couple, they're nowhere. They're nowhere compared to the government. So I do sort of think the opposition has to get its own house in order before they start measuring up the curtains in the lodge.
Now, Matt, what about that for a Christmas card? It's come all the way from Sky News Central.
Yeah, I need to. I haven't started my Christmas cards yet.
Smack us
but
around.
Sam, you're on the
bit.
list now, mate. You'll get one.
He's on the list. I mean, look, are you playing a long game? You want to get there, you don't want to get there, or the whole point is it's more fun to be able to...
No, I'm quite happy. I've answered this many times, but I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing. The main reason I'm not myself putting my hand up is because I don't believe in this net zero emissions rubbish. Yeah, and the government and the opposition have signed up to that. And the deal is, if you join a cabinet, obviously, you've got to have solidarity with the decisions. I don't agree with it, and I'll keep campaigning against it. I mean, last week it just exposed that the carbon tax in the government's net zero emissions modelling, this is their modelling, the Australian Energy Market Operators modelling, they show that you need a carbon tax of $262 in today's dollars to get to net zero emissions by 2050. It's absurd. It's mad. They've been very sneaky about providing that number. I had to wrench it out of them at a Senate inquiry. Because once you say it, you realise, why are we doing this? It's so expensive to everybody to charge a $260 carbon tax. So that's the main reason I'm not just not interested. I want to try and fight for the continuation of our manufacturing industry, our global energy competitiveness, and I can't do that if I'm muzzled by a cabinet that's decided to sign up to this global rubbish.
There was a headline today, I had to double check. Yes, apparently a plan for the government to be able to turn down things like your air conditioner because you're using too much power at a time when the rest of the grid needs it. Matt, tell me some of the details of how this works, because I know for some customers in Queensland this is a deal, but how the hell do you end up signing yourself up to these systems, and are they opt-in, opt-out? How do you end up in this little trap? Because I want to stay as far away from it as possible.
Look, to my knowledge, so far they've been opt-in. There's lots of different companies, though, around Australia, so there can be a variety of different contracts here. But yes, you can with smart meters these days and smart home household appliances. You can, from a central location, control your air conditioning, your pool filters, other equipment. And notionally, why you would sign up to this is that you potentially will get a cheaper electricity rate by signing away your rights to manage your own house on any given day. So at any particular time, if the grid then is overrun with demand or shorter supply, you can have your stuff turned off. The regulators are already doing this at a wholesale level, if you like. So aluminium smelters, some factories are often turned down to keep the lights on. They were last week or a week and a half ago now in Sydney. That happened. They sign up to that at a wholesale level, if you like, large users. But the idea is this could be rolled out in a household level to individual Australians. Now, my view is it seems very strange in a country blessed with so many energy resources that we have. Why do we need to ration our energy?
Correct.
This wasn't something we had to do.
Yeah.
We just turned the light on. Like your dad would get upset that, you were wasting money with rooms with lights on and that was fair enough, but it didn't break the bank. You weren't putting at risk your parents' mortgage by leaving a light on in your room. And so I just don't understand. To me, it's a clear demonstration of the failings of the government's plan to go to 82% renewables.
Well,
it just can't deliver the kind of lifestyle that our parents and grandparents took for granted here. And I don't want to deliver a world to my kids that's not as nice to live in. And I think that would be not a nice place to live in, to have the government control your own home.
Bloody oath. Spoken like the true loving father that you are. Sam, equally, loving father. Just these schemes, again, if there's a little trade-off of, you might save something slightly somewhere else, but it is just a little bit creepy, isn't it?
No, it is. It is a little bit creepy. I think central to the promise is that it has to be opt-in. The second they start trying to make this in any way mandatory or take the control away from people it's gone. Yeah. I didn't think this was an official government policy, but I might have been off the mark on that. But look, I mean, we've
some of the state governments
before.
are pushing it. No, it's not. Right. It's done by the states largely.
Right.
Yeah.
But we've talked about this before. I mean, central to the promise of decarbonising the grid has to be, and we'll see in 10 years' time, in 15 years' time, if this is right, it has to be cleaner, yes, but also cheaper and reliable. If you can't get that holy trinity, then people aren't going to cop it. And I know what Matt's going to say. He's going to say power prices, blah blah blah. But obviously we are on a journey. Obviously we have to find a way to replace these ageing and decrepit old coal-fired power plants. So how are we going to do that? What's the cheapest and most efficient way to do that? But central to that has to be we've got to be able to keep the lights on.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
Build new coal-fired power stations. That's what the CSIRO report today shows, that new coal is the cheapest. If you look at the detail, new coal is actually the cheapest, which is not shouldn't be news to anyone.